Carbs are not bad, and they're not as scary as people are saying that they are. Carbs are energy, and like if we don't have energy, like you said before, like does nutrition have an impact on physical health? If we don't have energy, we can't go. Like our bodies are like cars. So.
All right, welcome everyone with Let's Move Canada. My name is Luigi, and we are here today with Dana and a very special guest in a very special place. So today's episode of Let's Move Canada, we will be talking with registered dietitian Nicole Addison about what inspired her to pursue this wonderful path and what inspires her to stay healthy on a physical note as well as on a mental note. Let me start by saying that this podcast was brought to you by the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute, whose mission is to make Canada the fittest nation on earth by 2030. And so to this end, this podcast aims to raise awareness about physical activity and mental health. So about our guest today, Nicole Addison is a registered dietitian, lover of all things food and nutrition, recipe developer and nutrition communications expert based in Toronto and even the greater Toronto, I can say as well, right?
Yeah.
She focuses on creating accessible yet healthy recipes that nourish the body while fueling the soul. Nicole, did that do that justice?
That did. It's really exactly what encompasses me as a person and as a dietitian.
Beautiful. You just said the word dietitian. Okay, so one of the first things that Dana and I thought about was, whenever you hear dietitian, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, she's a nutritionist. So Can you tell us the difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist?
Yeah, for sure. So in Canada, the terms are a little bit more confusing than they are in the States. So in Canada, registered dietitian is a accredited designation that we receive from different regulatory bodies. So in Ontario, I am licensed under the College of Dietitians of Ontario. So in order to receive that accreditation, I had to do a 4-year undergrad program in nutrition. And then after that, you either have to pursue a master's in nutrition with a combined practicum hands-on experience, or you have to do an internship. So that will be about 8 months of hands-on experience where you're really using all those skills you developed during your undergrad and you're able to apply them. And then after that, you have to be able to pass a regulatory examination. So that is called the CDRE, and every dietitian has to be able to pass that with over 80%, I believe. And every single year, the College of Dietitians will help mandate exactly what the dietitians are able to do. They have to make sure that you're continuing to pursue your education, continuing to just continue building your skills, and they make sure that you're doing that correctly. Whereas in Canada, nutritionist is not a licensed term. So really anybody, like you could say you're a nutritionist just if you have a passion in nutrition.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more confusing for consumers, especially like on social media and stuff. If they see the term nutritionist, they don't necessarily know that they may not have the exact same education to be able to get to that position.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
But now it was clearly laid out. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So how did your passion for healthy eating and nutrition and diet, becoming a dietitian start?
Yeah, it was, honestly, I've really been interested in it since I was younger. My mom's a personal trainer, so that kind of got my interest in health started in general. She just always was trying to make sure we were staying active and like trying to buy healthier foods and like helping educate us a little bit more on what health really is. And from that, I really just started to gain, I just started to decide I really wanted to learn more about food and the role it has on our bodies and how we are able to do the things that we can do just based on what we fuel our bodies with.
Right.
Just that curiosity piece really just coming in.
Yeah.
Someone does something enough around you and it starts piquing your interest, and
exactly.
you kind of just start seeing where it all fits.
Yeah, which is why I think environment's so cool. Like it can kind of shape like who you become.
Makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
For sure. That's why it's probably really important to have, for kids growing up in a really healthy environment, right? And
Yeah, I
it
think
makes a difference.
yeah, like parents and like siblings and just like seeing what other people are doing, especially for kids, because a lot of their choices are based on like things
Yeah.
they're seeing.
Things they're seeing at home.
Yeah, so
100%.
it really starts at home, just like small changes and stuff.
And you know,
Yeah.
to your point that, you know, it all starts with our environment, home, where we are. How do you think that nutrition impacts physical activity as well as mental health?
Yeah, I think it can have a huge role in both of those. So I think just in general, like the food that we eat can have a huge impact on what we're able to do and what our bodies are able to do. So physically, like for example, if we're looking at specific nutrients, like protein can help make our build our muscles. Carbohydrates can help provide us with energy that gives us like the power to be able to do the things we want to do. And then just in a broader sense too, like there's so many nutrients that affect our mental health and like for example, vitamin D, omega-3, like so many things that we don't really realize that can have a huge impact on just how we are acting every single day.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And you notice it, right? When you're eating
Yeah.
like bad food, you know, you love it, and at the time you're like, yes, I want this hot fudge sundae,
Yeah.
but then
Right.
you're like, okay,
Yeah.
you definitely feel it.
Oh yeah,
You know,
for sure.
You eat healthy for a while, and you're like, wow, I have so much energy, my skin
Yeah.
looks better, and
Yeah.
all the things.
All of these different, and
Yeah.
you know, it also makes me think of parents that always say, "Oh, kids cannot eat after a certain hour because
yeah.
they just get so hyperactive." And you know, if let's say a kid is eating without their parents knowing, like a lot of sugar, and they're just hyperactive, they're like, "Wow, this kid just has a lot of energy. Like,
Yeah.
what's there, right?"
Yeah. So what would you say? You know, there's a lot of people that are like, I want to eat healthy, but I don't have enough time.
Yeah, I first of all would say you're definitely not alone. I think that's honestly one of the main reasons I decided I wanted to become a dietitian, because there's so many sources of like nutrition information and misinformation out there right now, especially with social media. So I just wanted to be able to help make it a little bit easier to like navigate some of that information while also making nutrition and healthy eating accessible to as many people as possible. So I think the first thing I would tell people is start small. Like nutrition doesn't need to be an entire overhaul of your life. Like you don't need to throw out every single thing in your fridge and in your pantry and just buy everything organic, spend thousands of dollars on new food, because honestly that probably won't work. Like if you aren't doing things like gradually and finding ways to actually fit it into your lifestyle, those changes aren't going to stick.
It's got to be sustainable, right?
Exactly.
If you go out and like
100%.
splurge in Whole Foods for a while, it's great, but can you sustain that?
Yeah,
100%.
right?
100%. Like I think it all comes back to it's a lifestyle. Like
It
it's
is.
not like you're not doing some fad diet. Like nutrition doesn't need to be, if you make it too complicated, it just becomes something that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So by like finding easy ways to implement
bits.
nutrition into your life where possible, I think that's huge. Like there's actually a saying that's kind of trending on social media right now. It's eat what you want and add what you need. And I think that's such an interesting way to think about it, because it's kind of saying that really any food can be healthy. Like it can all be included. So for example, like this morning if I woke up, it's a Saturday morning, I could have been like, oh, like I really want a croissant. But then in my mind I can say like, okay, but how can I add a little bit more to make it a bit more nourishing for my body?
Makes sense.
So maybe pairing it with some fruit for extra fiber and like some eggs for protein.
Right.
Just kind of balancing your plate a little bit more and thinking of always trying to include protein, carbohydrates, and some type of fruit and vegetable.
So you're saying you should include carbs, even everyone's trying
Yeah.
to cut out carbs.
Yeah. No, I definitely would say carbs are not bad, and they're not as scary as people are saying that they are. Carbs are energy, and like
Makes
if
sense.
we don't have energy, like you said before, like does nutrition have an impact on physical health? If we don't have energy, we can't go. Like our bodies
Makes
are
sense.
like cars, so
Right.
if we don't have that fuel, we're gonna run out of energy.
There's like the no carb. What's the no carb diet? Is that keto?
Keto.
Oh,
Yeah.
low carb, right?
Yeah.
So that's just like eat as much fat as you want,
Yeah,
right? And
which,
then no carbs.
if you're really thinking about it, any diet that's recommending you eat just bacon and like cheese, like I
Oh
feel
no,
like
that's some cholesterol and higher
Yeah,
cholesterol.
right? Like, there's so many
I know,
other
like,
things.
and the fruits and vegetables. Obviously, like vegetables have carbs, right?
Yeah.
But it's, processed carbs is probably where
Yeah.
you need to
Right.
change.
So I think with that, like, it comes down to focusing on the types of carbohydrates that we're eating.
Correct. Yeah.
So I always try to recommend like more fiber-filled carbohydrates when possible. So that would be like things like whole grains or like fruits and vegetables with like their skin on if they're edible skins, like apples. The skin has most of the fiber. So by eating that, it helps us just digest it a little bit better and helps it like release the energy over a slower period of time.
So you don't have to peel your cucumbers for salad and everything.
As long as you wash them. Yeah, make sure you wash them.
I've tried a keto diet before, and I had to learn the hard way that it's not so much the carb, but it's the taste.
Yeah.
When we talk, like there was the quote that you mentioned earlier, the one that's trending on social media. Eat what you want, add what you need. It makes me think about what we cut. That has a big impact. For me, it's taste, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I was able to work around that is, okay, it cannot be super low carb. Maybe there are cheat days, right, when I add maybe a little bit of something to make it sustainable, because it can't be a fad. It has to be a regular way. So it makes me think about, we talk about doing what you want, adding what you need. And in terms of cutting, can you give an example of one thing maybe somebody can cut down on that would have a big impact in the future?
Yeah, so I always do say, like, I try to focus on adding instead of restriction just because I feel like it's a little bit more sustainable. But if there's one thing that I would say probably isn't that beneficial to have in your diet, it would probably be sugar-sweetened beverages.
Okay.
So that can be things like pops, like with a lot of sugar in them, or even like coffees that are just full of sugar. I just find, I was actually in a webinar the other day learning a little bit more about the types of sugars, and it is proven now that sugar sweetened beverages are typically the most detrimental to our health just because they don't offer too many other types of nutrients for us.
So
what about like
I
Diet
know.
Coke? What about
so that's like
Coke Zero.
I think the amazing thing right now too is that like I'm able to say that and there's still so many other alternatives now, like Diet Coke, like or even just like there's like the soda streams that you can add like the flavoring to, so it's like a similar type of thing.
Okay. Like with fizzy water, like Perrier bubble water.
And I know like I'm pretty sure like Coke has like a little like syrup or something that you can add to like sparkling water.
Right, with the soda streams.
Right.
That's right.
Reminds me of my time in Boston when I actually had lavender soda, and what they did was they utilized, I think, bubble water, and it was through some machine, so maybe there was a little bit more something added to it, but they added this organic handmade lavender syrup, and it just tastes amazing.
Really good.
It tasted
That
amazing,
sounds really
right?
good. That sounds really good. I would
love
that. Have you ever had the kombucha Coke, like the Coca-Cola?
I haven't, but that sounds good.
Oh, it's
I've
so
had
good.
kombucha on its own. I didn't know that there was a...
Yeah, there's like
really?
a Pepsi one, and a Coca-Cola
What?
one, a root beer one.
Yeah.
I used to drink them because like it tastes the same, but it's like, I think it was 2 grams of sugar.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many different options now. Even like, I know there's a lot more. I went to the Canadian Health Food Association expo they had in Toronto a few weekends ago. So I was looking at new products and just like what's new on the market. Gut-friendly sodas are a huge thing on the market now, and they're trying to make like cream soda ones and like Coke alternative ones, and like it's really cool because they taste very similar and they have benefits too.
Right, benefits and like no sugar. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I think a Coca-Cola can has what, 30 something?
A lot.
grams?
A
Yeah,
lot.
is that,
Quite a
maybe it's
lot.
more. Maybe it's more than that. I'm not
It's
sure.
a lot.
But the kombucha one was like 2.
Yeah.
It's so different.
And it tastes good.
It tastes so good.
Tastes good.
Yeah. So, what do you see for your future and your career? What's your goals?
Yeah, I think my goals, I would love to become like one of the leading media dietitians in Canada.
Cool.
I really just want to make as many people as possible understand that like nutrition doesn't need to be overly complicated, and I want to try to help them make it a little bit more easy and accessible to incorporate into their lives. So like through my recipes, like through showing that like recipes don't need to be over 30 minutes or like have to have like so many ingredients just for them to be healthy. So I would love to do that. I'd love to like start doing some TV interviews, and even maybe down the road have like some type of cookbook. Like,
Oh yeah,
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, we'll have to follow you and follow your whole career, and I'll get that cookbook.
Hopefully you'll see me on the news soon.
Yeah, for sure. That's exciting.
I'm already thinking of a feature on your page. Nourished by Nick, by the way. That's Nick and IC, by the way.
Yes.
So we could see it now, right? Cookbook by Nick.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
What about you? Like, what does your typical meal look like?
Yeah.
For dinner?
So typically, going back to what I said before, if you've ever seen the Canada's Food Guide, the new cover, basically it shows like a plate and they divide it into different sections.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So half the plate should be some type of fruit or vegetable, or like a mix of a bunch of different ones. The quarter should be some type of protein. Other quarter should be some type of, ideally a fiber-filled carbohydrate. And then like it shows like a little circle of like healthy fats.
Okay.
So it obviously doesn't need to be divided into those sections, but I always try to aim for one source of each of those foods at every meal. So like I said with the croissant, like pairing the croissant, which is a carbohydrate, it's maybe not the best sorts of carbohydrates, but it would be a carbohydrate. Pairing it with some fruit and some eggs, so I make sure I get each of those categories.
Elements,
Do you worry a lot about calories?
I do not. So that's one thing I really try to stress the importance of, not necessarily like caring about, but just like understanding in a broader context on my page. So many people, like right when I post a recipe, one of the first questions is, how many calories does this have? How many calories does this have? And I'm like, calories don't necessarily equate to nutrition.
Right.
Like calories can be from so many different sources. For example, like one of the things we learned in school was if you look at a piece of avocado toast versus a piece of Nutella toast, avocado toast actually has more calories.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
But it doesn't necessarily have like
Nutrition.
yeah.
Nutella. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
exactly. So fat, which is avocado, it does have a higher calorie count, but it offers us so many benefits, like nutrition benefits, that it kind of outweighs the calories. So I always try to tell people to focus like less on the one specific number of calories and more just on the broader like nutrition panel.
Right.
So understanding like how much sugar is in a product, understanding how much fiber is in a product. Like those are the things you want to make sure you're getting more fiber and less sugar in
It's like
things.
nutritious calories.
Yeah, exactly. Or like
That makes
protein
sense.
content. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, right? We talk about nutrition, we talk about mental health. Now, I'm curious to know, what does physical activity look like for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like, when it comes to calories, as long as you have nutritious calories on your plate, you're good to go. What does your workout regimen looks like?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people forget that, it's not just one or the other,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're eating healthy, that doesn't always suffice, right? It's good to pair it up with some sort of physical activity to, to get you going, and it also would improve your mental health. So what does your
For
physical
sure.
activity regimen look like?
Yeah, so right now I try to be active in some way every day, ideally. Like that doesn't necessarily mean I'm spending like 45 minutes in the gym, like sweating so much. Like it could be a walk, like a longer walk with my dog, or it could be like yoga one day, or Pilates, or I really try to mix it up. So I kind of, right now I'm doing like a mixture of yoga, walks, HIIT workouts, and then like strength training too.
Okay.
Just because I find that's what works for me. I try to do things like listening to my body every day and like seeing, like when I wake up, like, okay, I don't really feel like going to the gym, even though I like had that plan this morning. I'm like, I think my body would enjoy yoga more today. So then I do yoga instead. Like it took me a long time to get to this position. In terms of food and my workouts, like being able to really listen to my body, understanding what it needs that day, and seeing it more as like a benefit to my body instead of like a punishment to
Makes
my
sense.
body.
Yeah. And I always feel like even when you really, I have these times where I just don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
Oh,
active. I'm on the couch,
absolutely.
under my blanket on the couch watching TV, right? But every time I actually get up and do it, I always feel better, and I always am
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's just that first hurdle of,
Yeah.
if you ever go, like I like going on runs, and that first mile, let me tell you, it's just, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? But once it starts getting into that routine, the adrenaline starts kicking in, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm glad that I'm doing this. And
Yeah,
you're
I've never thought like, oh, I should have just stayed on my couch and slept, like before. Yes, definitely, but
Yeah.
it's helpful. I love that feeling.
Same.
That feeling is healthy, right?
Well,
Like,
yeah, and
you
like
get
even
healthy.
mentally, I find it helps me so much. Like
Yeah.
I could be inside all day, just like working, and then by the end of the day I'm just like not in a good mood, and if I do
Right.
like a little workout, I'm like I feel so much better, and I
Right.
have energy, like I just feel happier. Running is one thing I've never been able to get into though. I want to. I really want to be a runner.
It's a
but
love-hate relationship. I wouldn't
Yeah.
call myself a runner, but it's a love. Sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just, and you get to brag to your friends.
Yeah.
But when you're not running for like, an extended period of time, you're thinking, oh my gosh, it always feels like such a hassle to get back
Yeah.
into it. So it's a love-hate relationship. I think to your point, it's listening to what your body needs that day and really trying to giving yourself the discipline to give it that, right? Because I think that's another big part of healthy eating and physical activity.
Yeah.
Physical activity is discipline.
I think I learned in school, I'm pretty sure this is the right time, but it said 3 months is how long it takes to develop a habit.
Yes.
So being able to like keep doing it even on the days you don't want to do it is so important for nutrition and for working out.
Right. Okay, as a registered dietitian, what do they recommend around like glasses of wine and alcohol?
That's a huge topic right now too, because the guidelines did just change in Canada. So they lowered them. They said, I think before it was the ideal amount of wine that you're supposed to be drinking was like 1 glass a day or something. And now they changed it to like maximum 2 a week. So it's a huge change.
Gosh.
It's a huge change. But it's just a guideline. It's not saying like don't, like if you really enjoy wine, you don't have
That's
to
a huge
completely cut it
difference,
out.
though,
Yeah.
right?
It's pretty big.
Yeah. It's been like I'm not 100% sure. I'm 90% sure that's what the statistic is, but they definitely changed it to lower it. So I always try to say everything in moderation in terms of anything.
100%.
Like if you're at a dinner party and you really want some wine, like have some wine.
Why not?
But I wouldn't recommend like having it as much as you're having like water. Like it's just
No, that makes sense.
I've definitely been trying to like limit alcohol a little bit more just because I feel like it makes me feel better. Like being able to wake up the next morning and like have energy and like just like mentally too. I feel a little bit better.
I love wine and dinner parties, drinking wine with friends. I love it. But at the same time, it's like I feel the next day.
Yeah.
I don't work out.
Yeah.
Right? The next day I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym.
You're like anxious and I just don't feel like myself.
Good. Your head, you have a headache.
Just,
It's like,
just want to stay.
Like, was it worth it? I don't know.
and they have all these alternatives now, right?
Yeah.
And you can have lower alcohol content wines, and you can
Yes,
have lower, So there's things you can do, but moderation. Moderation's always good.
Everything is moderation.
So what are some of your hobbies and interests outside of nutrition?
So I love reading. I've been so into reading recently. I was always a reader as a kid, and during school, I just stopped because like you're reading so much for school, reading textbooks all the time. I was like, I hate reading. And then after I graduated, I was like, I need a hobby. Like I need something to do. So I started reading again, and I have like a Goodreads profile now that I keep track of all the books I'm reading.
Cool.
And I've read like 45 books this year. So
wow.
I love
Way.
reading.
What are you reading right now?
Right now I'm reading this book by Ellie, I forgot how to say her last name, begins like Hilder something. It's called The 5-Star Weekend. It's actually about a food blogger.
Okay.
It's about it's a fake story, like it's fiction, but it's about a food blogger who hosts this like weekend with 5 of her best friends from like a different time period of her life. So like when she was like a teenager, when she was like in college, and when she had kids, like all these different time periods, and there's just all this drama that happens.
Okay,
and,
fun. That sounds fun.
Yeah, the way you started, I thought you were going in the direction of Julie and Julia.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but it's one of my favorite movies. It's actually the movie that got me into cooking.
Really?
I just thought it was
It's a
just
good
so
movie.
awesome. It's just
that was a good movie.
No, not sure.
I
Yeah,
love cooking
it's
movies.
just seeing her kind of just going through all of these different recipes, and during COVID, that's when it really
good time to
developed
watch
for me.
the movie.
Have you guys seen the movie
100%.
that just I think it's pretty new with Bradley Cooper about being a Michelin star chef, and he's
No,
I
feel
know
like I
which
want
one-
to.
I know which one you're talking about. I
No.
haven't watched it yet.
that was intense. That
I've
was
never
an
seen
intense
it.
movie.
I need to
Okay.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we watched it about a week ago,
I-
and I was like, whoa.
No,
but
I thought I wanted to become a chef until I saw similar. I've seen like
I
similar
saw,
movies
and
with
but
chefs,
after I
like,
watched the movie, I was like, I
Being
had
a
so
chef
much
would
more
be crazy.
it's crazy.
Being a chef would
Oh,
be
I
crazy.
know. I was,
It's a different world. It
Yeah.
really is.
but I had a lot more appreciation actually for like the food that they're putting so much time and like
Yes.
energy and things
Yeah.
to like making.
Yes.
I feel like
perfect.
when you go to like a really fancy restaurants and everything's like so small,
It's
I'm like, is this worth it? But like seeing like the work that goes into it,
Right.
Yeah.
It's more
It's
fulfilling
great
for
for
the chef.
calorie counting.
it's amazing. I'm just like,
Yeah.
small.
No, I remember thinking one time, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe it's more fulfilling for the chef than it is for the customer
Yeah,
because the whole
maybe.
process,
But
right?
there's a difference, right? If you have like, if you're going to get McDonald's, you know, the obviously McDonald's is not healthy, you know, compared
Yeah.
to taking a healthy meal and a McDonald's meal, but one actually has the person that's creating that meal is putting a lot of time and like love into that meal, right? Energy and everything into that meal. Whereas like junk food doesn't have that same sort of. So you have a kind of more appreciation for healthy food in that way too.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
how I felt about the movie.
like watching chefs and like seeing how they like put together different flavors and stuff, it's so interesting to me, and it's always like it's what inspires me too, because like people are always like, oh, how did you like get your recipes, like where do they come from? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like I feel like in my head, like I just have like a running list of all these different flavors I'd love to combine, or just like ideas, like especially since I make like healthier recipes, I get tons of inspiration from seeing like just traditional recipes, like a comfort food, like mac and cheese or something, and being able to like add a little bit more protein to it.
Right.
Making something that seems kind of simple, but making
Just
it cool,
add in
right?
nutrition.
Yeah.
And Netflix has been doing such a
Oh my
wonderful
gosh.
job lately with like all of these different shows, ranging from not just cooking, but how to make drinks, how to make desserts that are healthier. Like, I actually spend, if it's not reading, to your reading, I watch these shows. And it definitely has improved my cooking. Like to know how to smoke something without a barbecue grill, right?
So
like it's
cool.
just amazing.
And you can take say something like a salad, oh, it's so boring, I don't want to eat salad. My sister was terrible with this. She's like, I hate salad, I'm never eating it. And then during COVID, I was home all the time. We were staying together for a lot of during COVID. And I was like, okay, well, we'll just put on some really good dressings and homemade dressings, and you can go raspberry vinaigrette or Italian vinaigrette, French, whatever, right? And make it something else, make it something cool.
Yeah.
Right? Or this big Instagram trend with the chili oil
Oh my
eggs,
gosh,
right?
yeah.
It's like you can have eggs every morning, which I almost do.
Yeah.
But then you add a little bit of chili oil and
or like
green
I've seen
onions.
people do
Oh,
like
it's so good.
feta.
Oh my gosh, that's
So,
so good.
yes, with feta.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, no, it's. I think food is so cool because like you can take one thing and turn it into something completely different so easily. And one of my other hobbies is traveling, and I feel like being able to see other cultures and how they do things is so interesting to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So eating healthy does not need to be boring and
definitely
no taste and no flavor. It's like you can make it super flavorful and
with just a few easy tweaks.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it.
Like they say, like you say, fueling the soul.
Yeah,
Many different
exactly.
ways.
Yeah.
Soul. Oh, I like that. I like that.
Well, because I feel like healthy eating, like people are always like, oh, it's so boring. You just eat like chicken and rice, and I'm like,
Tastes like
grass.
hardcore.
yeah, I'm like, no, like it can still taste good. You have to like fuel your body and fuel your soul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, you guys heard it here. You heard it here first. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, of course. It was so nice talking to you both.
Yes, thank you.
Of
It was
course.
fun.
And please don't forget to follow Nicole on Nourished by Nick, both on Instagram and as well as your website.
Yep.
Right? So please don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to go and follow. And if you want to learn more or keep in touch with us, if you want to participate in our podcast, or you just want to know when the next episodes are coming out, don't forget to follow us at letsmovecanada.com or follow us on Let's Move Canada on Instagram. Thank you so much.